actor and singer, and Ruben Witter, who is a actor and dancer, and the Invisible Woman.
Who pointed you, David? I can't see it.
The Invisible One. Okay. So, typical. Right. So today we are going to discuss a very interesting topic which Ruben has brought to the table. Ruben, take it away. He is eating, so you have to wear a second. There you go.
Okay, so I'll say allegedly, but this has actually has documentation that it actually happened. There was this dancing craze in 1518 in the city of Strasbourg, which is now modern day France. So I guess apparently, because it sounds like a really crazy situation, a woman ran into this town, this village, kicking, shaking her arms, gyrating, dancing, right? Just sporadically, randomly. So she ran into this town, dancing for 6 days straight. Crazy, I know. And then for whatever reason, people decided to join in and dance with her because like, oh, okay, we're dancing now, so come on down. And then apparently around 50 people came in and joined her in dance. That lasted for about another week or so. And then suddenly 400 people in total were then dancing and gyrating with her. And a lot of them died because of fatigue, some heart attacks, some seizures as well. And a lot of Renaissance health practitioners at the time, of course, during the Renaissance, lots of weird medical things happened. But they paid people to then play music and dance with them because they think, oh, okay, well, if they're dancing, maybe they just dance until they're exhausted and they'll stop dancing. But then they got to get up again and they kept on dancing.
So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about whether it is genuinely possible to actually dance till you die. The Invisible Woman actually had a point to say about this regarding sleep and toilet breaks. Didn't she?
Sorry?
Sleep and toilet breaks. Dancing till you die.
Right. So what I was saying was that I don't believe that she was dancing for 24 hours because you can't do that. It's just not physically possible. After a while, you would literally drop from exhaustion and your body would kick into sleep mode. And you can't dance forever without going to the toilet or sleeping. I just don't think it's physically possible.
Let me just read. Affecting thousands of people across several centuries, dancing mania was not an isolated event and was well documented in contemporary reports.
Yes, but didn't you say at some point that they danced for an entire month straight?
Yes, they did. Men, women.
Without going to the toilet and without sleeping.
He didn't say that though.
Well, I don't know the specifics of it. Like I can't. I'm not sure if I didn't have the document with me to show. The Strasbourg, I think they wrote it down in the Strasbourg Council or something. But I don't think the specifics of him are can be found. But well, maybe they can be. It was no,
it's good. It's good. Keith, what do you think? Do you think you could dance till you die?
Yes.
Go on. Do you know someone who's danced till they died?
No. It's possible to keep going till exhaustion kills you.
Yes.
Is it like the people that play World of Warcraft and can't stop and then end up dying because they haven't eaten or gone to sleep?
I've not heard of that myself because I'm not sad enough, but I'll take your word for it.
It's kind of weird how you can see someone on work on Friday, wish them a happy weekend. Then on Monday you find out they've died because they're playing World of Warcraft and not moving. Like they got either backed up or died of starvation or something. Playing World of Warcraft for 3 days straight.
Yeah, it's true. They were people who actually died playing World of Warcraft in the early days because they didn't eat and they couldn't sleep because it was a live platform and they were worried they were going to lose their character. I know.
Oh dear.
I want to get into World of Warcraft. I was a RuneScape kid. World of Warcraft.
But I was trying to compare it to the dancing. Don't you think that's a bit similar? It's like an addiction, isn't it? You have to keep going.
Because dancing is euphoric. I mean, it releases dopamine in the brain. It makes you happy to dance. So then
Mhm.
people must be like, okay, let's dance, let's dance. That's even that same high.
Would you
Dancing.
dance so long that you could end up exhausting and keeling over?
Well, I love to dance, but then I need to be alive for the next job.
Not physically possible. That's all I am saying. Actually, no, I'm saying more than that. It's just not physically possible. You can't dance. Like, you can't. If you keep dancing without going to the toilet, you will pee yourself. Because your body eventually will lose control. Your bladder will no longer hold the contents in, and so on and so forth. It's just not
I mean,
possible.
you can put yourself into a dance though. These two things are not exclusive to each other.
So, yeah, I suppose you can pee and dance at the same time if you don't care, but that's ridiculous, isn't it?
But then if you're dancing for 3 days straight, you're not eating or drinking. So then you're sweating.
Where
Yeah,
did they dance? Was it in the street?
Let me tell you right now, you will not survive 3 days without drinking water.
Were
if
they
you're
in the
dancing
street, dancing in the
continuously.
street? I mean, what?
Because where the body's going to find the resources to keep the energy up, it's not going to happen.
Let's look logically here. Let's say we're in this town, and a random woman comes into the town and just starts dancing. Could you imagine everyone in our town suddenly getting and dancing with her for 6 days straight? It wouldn't happen. Because-
Not everyone, maybe some people.
Well, you wouldn't have 1,000 people doing it or 400 people doing it.
What is your point then? What do you
I
trying
don't
to
think
say?
people would do that. I don't think people would stop everything they're doing, stop their jobs, and just
Then
start dancing.
what do you think they tried to say with this piece of news? What do you think the agenda is then?
Well, people like meme. People like being in with the crowd. People like doing what's popular. If we're all dancing, if we're a dancing nation now, people will just think.
Do you think it's
okay.
like a sheep mentality then? Like following the crowd?
Not necessarily a sheep mentality, but there's a term in here that it's speculated to have been a mass psychogenic illness in which physical symptoms with no physical cause are observed to affect a group of people as a form of situational. Are social creatures. If we see one person clapping, another person will clap, and then 3 more will clap, and then 7 more.
Sheep
and then,
mentality.
Well, no, that's like quite a nasty term to use. It's not
Okay.
the same, really. It's like if one person yawns, then like a crowd of people will yawn. Like humans want to follow each other because want to do the right
Do you know
thing.
why they call it sheep mentality? Because when you have a crowd of sheep, and if you lead one of the sheep away, a couple more follow, and then a couple more until the whole crowd of sheep go with them.
Oh, that's the same with a pack of dogs, with horses, with chickens.
I'm just
Sheep are
using it.
amazing
Every
creatures.
animal
I bet people
in
use
the-
that with a negative
I love
connotation.
Yeah, every animal in the animal kingdom wants to follow each other
Mhm.
and do.
Like packs, yeah.
Why are we having this conversation?
Because-
Where are we going with
Because
this?
Ruben was fascinated for the last few days over these people dancing to death. They kept talking about
I
it.
think
over and over.
the better question is, why did they post this on the news? I mean, why did they leave certain details out? Like, we know it's not possible for this woman to dance 6 days straight without going to sleep or eating or drinking water.
But the
So-
Renaissance was a crazy time. Things happen, and these things happen.
How do you know?
Do they happen though? How can we trust anything on the news?
Well,
Wow.
in that time, how would you just know?
Keith is like,
Oh my gosh, I can't believe that she just opened up a wormhole of information.
not necessarily. What do you have to say, Keith? Do you have an opinion?
I think it is possible, but it's also possible that she was sleeping at some point.
Yeah, thanks, definitely.
But
She
then
had to.
but
If
then
she
you
slept,
can
how
die.
did she die?
You can die of sleep
You can
deprivation.
still die of exhaustion if you get up and literally start exercising again straight away.
I suppose if you're dancing continuously, I don't know.
I like that.
I think what they've said is that you can't go 3 days without drinking water. If you go 3 days without drinking water, you will die.
Also,
You can go quite a few days without eating, but not drinking water.
Keith raised a point about exercising. Maybe they weren't dancing, but they were actually trying to lose weight and exercise.
Really? In full Renaissance attire?
How do you know what they were wearing?
There's
Renaissance
actually a
attire.
painting.
Renaissance
Well,
attire.
there's a painting.
So why
yeah.
were they dancing in Renaissance?
There's a picture.
Oh.
Oh, let me throw that to the
That's a
camera.
picture of a painting.
Is this a spiritual thing? Like, were they possessed or something?
It was possessed.
Let
Oh,
me see. Let me see.
Oh well.
with
Well,
my invisible eyes.
well, actually, this dancing craze happened throughout the 10th century, 11th
Okay,
century,
so
13th, 14th.
it says here that music was typically played during outbreaks of dancing. So
Oh,
they
okay.
weren't dancing continuously. There was outbreaks of dancing mania where you'd be in the middle of doing something, I guess, and then suddenly there'll be this outbreak and everyone will start
I
dancing.
know. I know where they do that. They do that now with Bollywood films.
Flash mobs.
Where you just
What's,
flash mob.
what's a flash mob?
It's where go on.
It's where a group of people organise to start something, and then people in the general public and crowd will join in.
Like they'll just start dancing a Michael Jackson dance or something, and then everyone else will
But
join
that's
in.
okay. That's what we were saying. Like if it's an outbreak of something, then they stop at some point and go and eat or sleep. Then that's perfectly possible.
And apparently, sometime during the 14th century, this one woman came from the Netherlands to Germany to France, going from village to village, dancing and shrieking like a demon, or something like yeah, like just possessed.
Yeah. So was she possessed? Then that's the question.
Who knows?
Was she having an epileptic fit?
Yeah.
Could have been, yeah.
You never know.
It's
And
absolutely
they
true.
interpret it as dancing.
As dancing, yeah.
Well, you
They
would
didn't
know,
Quite a lot of
wouldn't you?
people that would have fitted that would have been interpreted as dance, and that could have killed them.
That's true. That's true.
Maybe.
So I've seen my brother have an epileptic
yeah.
fit because he was born with cerebral palsy.
Oh, no.
And he used to suffer from that before he had a brain operation. And when he used to have epileptical fits, I remember him, we were at the hospital once, he was sitting on the chair. And all it was is his eyes went into his skull, so you could see the whites of his eyes, and he slowly slid down the chair to the floor, really slowly. It was really creepy to watch. But he didn't dance around or do anything like that. But I suppose you could. I suppose everyone could be different in the way they react, but with him, he just slid down the chair. It's really creepy to
Also,
watch.
and going on that point that Keith just raised, they could have had diabetes, and a diabetic fit of not enough sugar balance because them overexerting themselves. You can have a fit.
Can you?
Yes, I've seen that happen.
I didn't know that.
People believe that the dancing was a curse brought by Saint Vitus. They responded by praying and making pilgrimages to places dedicated to Vitus. Prayers also made to Saint John the Baptist, who some believed also caused the dancing. Others claimed to be possessed by demons. Or Satan. Therefore, exorcisms were performed on the dancers.
Everyone is getting so excited.
Ruben is getting freaked out that they've actually mentioned in it that they performed exorcisms on the dancers.
Demon out. Oh my god. Bartholomew notes that I think Saint Bartholomew, notes that music was often played while participants danced, and that was believed to be an effective remedy.
So playing the music calmed them down.
But
So that music soothes the savage beast.
and during some outbreaks, musicians were even employed to play. Mildefort, I don't know what that is. This describes how the music encouraged the others to join in, however, and thus effectively made things worse, as did the dancing places that were sometimes set up. So they made up like specific dancing zones to contain.
Maybe that's where the earlier nightclubs came from.
Yeah, and then they're like, oh, we're dancing over here now, so others joined specifically to that.
So this has opened up two discussions, I think, here. One is medical illnesses versus spiritual illnesses, like how correlated are they, how connected are they, and how much of illnesses are psychological or spiritual, and is the psychological and spiritual the same thing, or are they different things? And the other conversation I think we've opened up is something. What was the last thing you just said?
Something you last said.
Oh, the dancing zones.
The dancing zones.
Well,
It's
yeah.
the start of nightclubs.
About how much music controls someone's mind, because
Oh, yeah.
music, in my opinion, is a spiritual phenomenon. And the mind, in Greek, the word mind, the word psyche, right? I'll look it up. It means soul, something like soul. But I'll look that up. And the symbol of the National Psychology Association America, whatever, is a butterfly or something. And of course, the butterfly is also the symbol of Mind Control Ultra. So that's very interesting. because to the Greeks, the soul and the mind were exactly the same thing. And in Japanese, there is a word for this, which is kokoro. And kokoro means heart, mind, and soul, because for the Japanese, those are all the same thing. In terms of how they perceive things, in terms of their culture, the heart, mind, and soul are all the same thing. And it's really interesting when people talk about the mind, because they think the brain and the mind are the same thing. But in my opinion, the brain is the physical counterpart and the mind is the spiritual counterpart, because the mind is not physical, the brain is. So it's really what we have here is, I hope you're not too bored, Keith. So we're like a bunch of Harvard professors sitting around having a lecture.
You talked about,
except we're not.
You talked about music. You can control things or people with music. I've studied music therapy and I've been a DJ, and Keith's worked
So
in
here
DJ.
we go. Let me just say this really
Okay.
quickly. Psyche, which is another word for mind, means the human soul, mind, or spirit. Okay? So, and this comes from ancient Greece. So you can laugh all you want, but the ancient Greeks created this
And
concept.
remember, you believe everything you read online. So there it is.
Oh, David, don't say that. He doesn't. It was just a joke.
Yeah, going back to what you said, David. Other theory, this article says other theories suggest that the symptoms were similar to encephalitis, epilepsy, and typhus. But as with ergotism, those symptoms cannot account for all symptoms.
Because psychology comes from the word psyche, and psyche is the Greek term for soul or spirit. So all I'm saying, that I'm just making the point that the mind is, or psyche is the soul. So in terms of talking about this topic, like Ruben was saying just now, how they were having these fits, there's epileptic fits and all that. How much of that is spiritual, psychological? How much of that is physical? I think that's the discussion at hand, really, that we're trying
Also,
to
you
have
talked
here.
about the discussion, which I was just saying before you found the psychological thing, about the music being able
Yes, that's right,
to
yeah, that's
control
right.
people. I mean,
and you were saying you and Keith studied music.
well, no. Both of us have worked at different times as
right.
DJs.
Right, yeah.
And I could say from my experience that you can control a crowd playing different types of music. It is possible. It messes around with their brain
emotions,
function. And
true.
I'll give you an example. Once I was DJing a New Year's event, and a big fight broke out in the crowd, pretty big one. And I changed the music, and they all calmed down just by that change of song. And the landlord came to me and he said, "I've never seen a DJ be able to control a crowd so well with music." Because
you
music
created the fight.
No, I think the music created the fight, and I didn't know that. And when I flipped the track, it calmed it down.
It's interesting.
But the thing is, there are songs which are designed to rouse certain emotions in people.
So only certain songs, I would say, is pretty much every
I
song.
said there are certain songs that arouse certain emotions in people. So different songs realize different emotions.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Keith?
Yeah, that's sure. I mean, restaurants have been using music for years to speed people up or slow them down, depending on who's in and what time it is.
I didn't know that. That's fascinating.
Restaurants, I know that shopping centres do it. And
Shopping centres as well.
Clothing stores, but
Yeah.
never restaurants. I didn't think that.
I heard a while ago that in train stations, certain tube stations at least, they play certain music to calm people down so that no fights break out. And I've noticed that every Stockwell station, they play classical music because apparently classical music is supposed to be peaceful and soothing. I
Also
don't necessarily
deters the
agree with that,
yobs.
but sorry?
Also deters the yobbos.
Deters the yobos, fair enough.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what?
So what do you think about this whole thing there? These illnesses, these people reacting to music, how much of it do you think is spiritual?
I think there's certainly an aspect of it, but the more we out the psyche, the more we realise that certain conditions are caused by neurons not firing correctly.
Okay.
So it's the way the brain's developed as a
Yeah.
younger person that can cause the issues.
So give us an example then.
Well, epilepsy is normally caused by neurons not firing correctly, and that triggers fits and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So in the past it would have
Yeah.
just been a spiritual,
Yeah.
whereas realistically we realise it can be controlled partly by drugs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like in that time, especially anything which was against whatever was normal at the time, they'd assume there was like a demon inside them, what needs to be cast out by religious means. That's not funny.
It's kind of funny.
Don't worry, it's fine.
It is kind of funny.
Oh gosh, but
We don't know. We don't understand, demon.
yeah, like, and then like this, oh gosh, please, to be alive at that time was a bit this and.
But I think most people don't really understand the spirituality. I mean, we don't understand the spirituality that well. I mean, there are two realms as far as I'm concerned, the spiritual realm and the physical realm. And I think the two go with each other. I believe in demons, and the way I perceive demons is that demons are fallen angels. I mean, that's what it says in the Bible, that demons are fallen angels. And granted, I don't expect everyone to believe that, because everyone has different beliefs about different things. But angels are spiritual and physical creatures like we are, but they have different powers and they're built in different ways. And they could control human beings if they wanted, but at the same time, I think you said, David, that says in the Bible that human beings were given authority over
Correct.
angels. So
if we exercise that authority and know the authority.
So it's a bit of a complex relationship there, but I don't think it's all down to demons, because spirits and demons are not the same thing. And spirits are like, anything that's spiritual can still manifest in the physical. I'm not taking the neurons firing or misfiring away from you, because obviously my brother had epileptic fits. And he had an operation down to his brain, and he hasn't had epileptic. I think he's had maybe one epileptic fit since then. But I think that in not fully understanding, I think everything is made of light, and light is energy, and energy is made of atoms. So if the spiritual realm exists, which I believe it does, I think it's made of atoms, because that's what energy is made from. So there is a physical aspect to it, but it is processed in a different way to the physical world. So, like, for example, when we have the wind, we can't see the wind, it's invisible to us, but we can feel it and we can see it moving things around. That's how we know it exists, yeah? But it's also the way we interpret things. Like, for example, that thing which we call gravity. As far as the world is concerned, there's such a thing as gravity, which keeps our feet on the ground. But actually, that may not be the reason why we can walk on the earth without falling off of it, if you will. There could be a complete different reason to it that we haven't discovered yet. And we are very limited in our understanding of things. So just because in the past societies used to be like, attribute everything to demons. And there was an agenda to that, because at the time, the Catholic Church, until the Church of England came along, was in power. And they used to lie to people and say that the kings were chosen by the gods or by God. So they had to maintain that agenda going of everything is demon-led or spiritually led, because the church was in power. And that was part of the agenda to, so there is a reason to that, but that doesn't take away, just because that's what they believed at the time.
It's interesting
it doesn't take away.
You talk about science and how with gravity, you said, and how that's how we've interpreted it now, but how it might not be exactly right. We wouldn't know until later on in scientific technology. For example, they had this article that I read that up until, I think they discovered this about 3 or 4 years ago, that they thought, because of the Big Bang, that there would come a time where the expansion of the universe would start to slow down and then come back on itself. That was the idea, okay? But they've actually noticed that actually it's speeding up, and that it shouldn't be speeding up. It's slowly increasing speed on this expansion. And that doesn't make any scientific sense to the Big Bang Theory or any of the current theories out there. So they've now started questioning the theories which they've been preaching all this time as fact, even though they still don't know why it's speeding up and things like that.
Science, like alchemy, for example, like science has a background in magic, doesn't it? Because I mean, like, for example, the word doctor comes from witch doctor. That's where it originally comes from. And to doctor something is to change or manipulate something. That's what the word doctrine means. Okay? And when you have things like alchemy, for example, chemistry comes from the word alchemy. Yeah? And chemist comes from the word chemistry, obviously, which comes from the word alchemy. And alchemy was a form of magic. So science, okay, what would you could argue the same way that they used to interpret it as magic and now it's science. But like I think anything in life, it's always, science is always open to interpretation because as humans, our knowledge is limited. And we perceive something today and then tomorrow we change it. So it's very difficult to accept what is true and what isn't because of, I guess, the limitations in what is man-made. And I'm not saying science doesn't give us answers because I think science and spiritual actually go hand in hand, to be honest. But I'm sorry that I'm going on about this for so long. Obviously, I'm passionate about the subject matter. But I think people misunderstand both and they jump to conclusions too quickly about what is spiritual, what a demon is, or what, things like that, because we've been told certain things and I think sometimes, we jump to conclusions. Sorry, Ruben, you were trying to say something earlier.
Actually, I was going to ask Ruben what his view is on what you just said about science and stuff.
Oh, well, in terms of gravity, I mean, it is still sold as a theory of gravity, I guess. I'm just trying to figure out what gravity is, and stuff, and like that. Science is based on whatever technology we have at the time and whatever our limitations are. I mean, for the longest time, we used to think that everything in the Bible was the only thing that we'd have to believe. Like there's documentation to believe that things could be cast out with either spells or prayers, or then
Christians don't do spells.
Oh, okay.
I think he means that in the Bible it talks about how you can bless someone and curse someone and change them through that word, through those words. No, but he was saying that in the Bible, whether you're a witch or whether you're a Christian or whether you're a believer, it's the belief system that you were talking about, and how in the past people used to believe that, but actually people still believe that today.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I mean, I believe it.
You do?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I've seen evidence of it.
Well, I guess if you can really project an image into someone's mind, then I guess. I don't know. I don't really know about that whole realm of things. But I guess
that's another subject.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, back before religion was even much of a thing, then we used to cure ailments with certain herbs and leaves and roll over us probably. And then after religion, it moved on to lobotomies and cutting up limbs and all kinds of strange stuff. Now we have modern science today, which seems and now we're into medicine.
It's complex, but it's fascinating. Obviously, everything comes from syrups, for example, medicinal. Is that how you say it? Syrups come from potions. That's where they come from. Because obviously it was the witch doctors, whatever, that would put these potions together to heal people in their tribes and things like that. So that's the origin of it. That doesn't make it bad. I'm just saying that's kind of where it's come from. And before, Christianity wasn't always the main religion. Especially in my country, for example, there was a lot of Islam at the beginning, before it even became a country. And I'm talking about Portugal specifically because the Moors invaded from Africa. So there was a lot of Muslim influence on the country. And then, of course, the Roman Empire spread Catholicism, and Christianity was born out of that. And of course, Catholicism or Christianity came from Judaism. So, it's a bit more complex, and I think we're a little bit tired to be discussing such
it's all good.
Complex subject matter.
It's all good. So when you're tired is when you discussing the best.
Is it?
Yeah. Because they're docile enough to actually get around the table and do it.
I think what I'm trying to work out there is why you wanted to do this video in the first place.
Because Ruben has spent the last 3 days talking to me continuously about the subject of people dancing to death.
See, it's interesting because the word dancer,
Continuously?
the word dancer means puppet, right? And when you're dancing, that means
Two days,
something is affecting your mind because your mind controls your body. So the only way to control someone's body without forcing them physically is to control them via their mind. So if music is so powerful, but then on his article it says that they weren't dancing to music.
The music
Not
calmed them
initially, the
down.
music came afterwards.
Exactly.
In an attempt to calm them down, but which actually spurred them on.
Exactly. So it wasn't the music controlling them, it was something else. They randomly started dancing. They went into this dancing outbreaks, right?
Mhm.
And then they used the music to calm them down. So
Anything that leads you to dance and then
that means
die,
something is taking over
something has
you
taken over
physically.
you. Yeah.
So whether that's an illness or a spiritual manifestation, I mean, why were you interested in this? Why did you want to discuss this?
Because I've never heard it before.
But where are you going with this? What's the point of this video?
I'm just interested to know if it's possible to dance to death.
Is that the question?
That's why I
Well,
put down
me
the
and Keith
question.
said yes.
Dancing mania was a social phenomenon that occurred primarily.
Ruben,
in
do
the
you
area
think
of
that
the
you can actually dance to death?
Well,
I'm thinking to myself, if
It's a
it was me,
possibility,
I think
yes.
so.
you
I
can,
agree
you can
with
do,
you.
I mean, you can run to death. You know, you can exercise yourself to death. You can do anything to death.
and I was just thinking for myself, like personally, I like dancing. If I kept dancing on and on and on, and I slept, I got up, I ate, I went to the toilet, I carried on
But if you
dancing.
didn't eat.
Oh yeah, but it doesn't say that. You said it happens in spurts. Does it happen in spurts, or is it continuous? Now that is
That's
the
what
real
it said. There
question.
was outbreaks of dancing.
Yes,
anyway.
and then it doesn't say that they didn't go to sleep, and I wonder whether I would actually die. If
But actually,
I,
Keith made a really good point earlier, and I think he's right, where he said that even if you did take breaks, if you sleep and then you eat, but then you keep dancing continuously, eventually, well, I suppose it depends on your
I think-
diet and how much sleep you're getting, but you could use up your entire body's resources.
but
and-
if you're an
and
athlete,
die.
for example, if you're a professional athlete, they have a rigorous routine which they keep every single day, going out and running and pushing themselves harder and
Yeah,
harder.
but they don't do 24, like they
No,
don't like.
He's not saying 24 hours because he's saying you went to sleep and you also ate.
Yeah, but you can't do it forever. You have to take a break at some point, otherwise you go crazy. I mean, I love painting, but it gets to the point like if I've been doing it for hours, my mind is going like
The mania affected.
it's getting over.
Mania affected men, women, and children who danced until they collapsed from exhaustion.
Children as well. There's got to be something in the mind on that. It can't be
Yeah.
normal. A child would get bored too easily.
It's interesting how it just suddenly happened, and it's like that movie Red Shoes that I was telling Ruben, where she wears these red shoes and she's a ballet dancer, and the shoes I think have a spell on them or something, and she can't take them off, so she keeps dancing and dancing and dancing until she dies, because the shoes are making her dance, and it's interesting how
That
it
actually
works.
comes out of a folklore anyway.
Does it?
Mm.
Well, what's the folklore?
Dancing shoes.
Okay. Do you want to tell us the story?
Do you
That's
know
pretty
the
much
story?
it.
That-
They put on some shoes and they started
Dancing
dancing.
to shoes and couldn't stop.
Cursed shoes.
Are you looking it up?
I think it's a
Oh, yeah.
German folklore.
Probably.
Oh, what are you
Oh,
saying?
yeah. Hang on. Let's see.
They have the best. They have the best folklore.
The film is about a ballerina who joins an established ballet company and becomes the lead dancer in a new ballet called The Red Shoes, itself based on the fairy tale The Red Shoes by Hans Christian Andersen.
Hans Christian Andersen. Wow, it's going to be
Told you.
dark. It's going to be dark if it's Hans Christian Andersen.
Well, they
Oh,
dance
yes.
themselves to death.
I know that
Yeah.
one. Yes. I know that one about the shoes. They mention that in the film, the Hans Christian Andersen film.
Mm.
Mm.
What do you think, Keith? What do you think was taking over these people? What do you think was happening? Do you think it was just epileptic fits brought on by illness or diabetic stuff?
Could just be the endorphins.
Mm.
Do you think it's
You feel
spiritual?
euphoric, so you just keep going until you.
Then how come that doesn't happen today? Really?
At night.
Because normally people would stop you.
Okay, why are you doing that with?
If you collapse, you end up in hospital nowadays.
Yeah.
That's true. You won't just be left there to get up again and carry on dancing.
If you did it at home, nobody would know what caused it anyway, so you'd just be put down as natural.
It could have been a mass
Exhaustion.
experiment. on.
By some random woman in the 16th century, just like by herself shrieking like a banshee, and then other people just join in.
Okay, here's I'll throw a random thought at you. Okay, what if the lady that started it was a witch who was trying to put a curse on the town?
Maybe. Well, apparently, or this will be the article again.
But why
there
would
was
she
like-
dance herself?
There was a series
She's
of
casting a
famine
spell.
and storms and all kinds of weird stuff during that time. So, and if you lived in that time without like technology or the internet or like science, then you just assume that it's this god or some kind of spirit.
I only ask because there are witches still today who practice stuff like this. Not this stuff specific.
But
but, you
one
know.
person have that much power as so many people? I'm not sure if it's
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah,
Is it?
yeah,
in the-
yeah.
Do you know examples of this?
And not,
I'm
also,
genuinely asking because I'm
Look at
interested.
politicians.
also in the Renaissance.
Oh, I want to get back to this. Go on,
in the
Bruno.
Renaissance, you didn't have any more information or education than perhaps your church. So you really wouldn't know anything about anything, really. Like you could literally be born in a shed and die in that shed and have and that can be your entire world.
I think that most people today don't have as much information about anything that they could have.
I think you are wrong. I think we've been taught that people in the past were more ignorant than they are now, and I don't think that's true.
No.
I've done a lot of research into the Roman Empire, and let me tell you, their society was very modern. People were pretty much the same as they are today. We're pretty much living in Roman cities today. The whole structure of our current modern cities are all based on the original, which was Rome. You know, they started the current structures. It's fascinating, and that was 2,000 years ago.
You know, they had running water.
It
and
is true
everything,
that they
right?
try to control people with using the Bible
Romans
through
weren't the
religious
first,
means.
Oh, yeah, they
but-
were.
But I think my point is more individuals were less likely to rise up, as they say, and take ownership for their own mind and
No.
education.
Maybe in
So
terms
then-
of that, but not necessarily in terms of social issues.
Okay.
I think.
But generally, if you get like an isolated village of not well educated people, they'll just believe whatever comes in.
But that still happens today.
Yeah, it does.
People believe everything on the news. They
Mm.
still think the news are telling them the truth. They believe everything that the television says.
Mm.
How are we any better than people from 2,000 years
If a
ago?
news article comes up that says, or we were talking about this earlier, if a news article comes up that says somebody killed somebody, okay,
Mm.
and that person had been framed, people buy the first story they see. It takes a long time to undo that story if they then find out that the person was framed.
Yeah, because it gets in your subconscious.
Definitely, but that's why we as humans invented due process, and in terms of legality and in terms of good journalism.
Good. Do you want to wade
Is
into
there
this?
such a thing as good journalism?
Even though really raw, gritty and investigative journalism, I don't think has been around for a long time. But now it's just like things that you tweet end up on the news in newspapers. So
The only thing that ends up on the news is something that will sell the paper or the news to make people watch it.
I agree.
They're reported about normal stuff, people just wouldn't tune in.
And it's
That's
really
true.
interesting, actually.
They
If you
pick
do,
like the most depressing things because they know that's like
it's interesting if you study the news because, like, for example, they tend to report stories that relate to whatever political agenda is happening at that time. Like, for
Yeah.
example, you might not hear anything about knife crime for ages. And then suddenly a politician will say, we're cutting down on knife crime.
Yeah.
And there'll be like 20 stories that come out of knife crime
Mm.
happening in the country.
yeah, knife crime's really popular.
It's
Right
an
now,
example
yeah.
of an agenda that's happening right now.
Mm.
Okay?
What, to reduce knife crime, or just to highlight?
No, it might be, there could be all sorts of
It's
things.
probably something to do with Brexit or something.
It-
A lot of people think it's to divert focus from Brexit,
Yeah,
which is why it's become such a massive thing in the last few months.
yeah,
But
yeah.
knife crime's been going on. It doesn't end. I mean,
It's been as bad as it is now for
Mm.
decades.
But
yeah.
suddenly
It's
it's
only
like
just
in the
on
news.
on
yeah,
the
like, it's
it's
like-
news a
so
lot,
badly.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And also, there's other things like when they had when they have a political agenda, like dealing with something, say in America's dealing with a particular subject, they will suddenly
Like
mention
Trump.
all that. They'll suddenly mention all around the country or all around the world. These things are happening in each country. Like when they were trying to bring in the war on terrorism,
Mm.
and they said, well, this is happening in this country, and 6 months ago that happened in that country, and a year ago that happened in that country. Why didn't they report it at the time? They report it now because it fits in with the agenda, and we're going off track.
Very much so.
This is how conversations work, They start somewhere and then they end up somewhere.
Well, it's how conversations work, but it's not how
Not to do
topics
with it,
get discussed.
Why do you think that we dance in the first place?
Why do you think? Sorry,
That's
Why do we dance for entertainment?
why do we dance?
Music takes over your body. I mean, for example, when I sing Despacito, is one of my favorite songs right now. And whenever Despacito comes on, immediately I want to dance. That's how powerful that song is. And I want to dance sexually, not just dance, but I want to cavort with my body and shake my hips. And that's on purpose. It has a powerful effect on your mind.
But it doesn't have effect on my mind. I don't want to start dancing whenever Despacito comes on.
Maybe it affects women in a way it doesn't affect men.
I think humans are the only species that makes music, personally. Or birds sing, but
Whales.
Whales.
I
Yeah.
was going to say
Oh,
dolphins.
whales.
Don't they do
Whales,
as well?
dolphins, they do music.
Yeah.
Okay. As in, like, not whales sung to speak, as in, like,
You don't
music to
count-
entertain?
Are you
Yeah.
talking?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not always for.
Yeah.
It can be a social thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I've
And
never.
communication as well.
Cool.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
All whales need to do is like invent fire or their version of electricity, and then like we're done.
well, why would whales need that?
They don't need that.
No,
It doesn't work.
I know.
on water.
It's because like whales are apparently the second the smartest.
I know where
So, like,
Ruben is
if
coming
they-
from.
If they like rise
I
up,
know
then
it's
we're
coming
done.
from.
I think animals don't need that kind of stuff because there's.
I don't think humans need that kind of stuff. We've been conditioned to think that we need things like we need electricity, we need the all of these modern conveniences.
Like more
We
and
don't
more,
actually need
we've
them.
been brainwashed into accepting the artificial over the natural.
Here's an interesting subject. I want to throw this one out on that subject, okay? At work, won't say who, but in one of my jobs I did recently, one of the guys came up to me while I was listening to a cassette recorder, and he said to me, "What's that?" I said, "It's a cassette recorder," and he's about 22 years old, okay?
Mm.
And he said, "I know those, but I've never seen one."
Mm.
So then I showed him it, and one ear was working and the other wasn't because the cassette recorder was in mono, not stereo. And
Oh,
I
right.
said you're supposed to use a mono headphones, but they don't exist anymore. So he said, "Oh, that's a bit useless." And he said, "Why wouldn't you have stereo?" And I tried to explain to him that we didn't have stereo back then; most things were mono. And then
The mono doesn't
then he
count,
went
so-
further and he said, "Is that the best quality sound you come up with?" And I said, "Well, yeah, that's how tapes sounded. They didn't sound the level of quality you get in an MP3."
Mm.
And then he said, "Does it have Bluetooth?" And I nearly laughed, and I said, "No, it doesn't have. Bluetooth wasn't invented back then when we had cassette recorders." And his response was, "Well, it's a waste of time then."
Mm.
Okay, because in his eyes, it's not up to the standard of the technology we have today. So what's the point in even listening to it?
But if a new phone came out and it didn't have Bluetooth, I'd be like, why? Why is it about Bluetooth?
There.
What? Do people really use Bluetooth that much?
Yeah, they use it for headphones. So they got
Yeah.
headphone Bluetooth, so it's just connecting.
Headphones to your car.
That's one of the common
Yeah.
ones.
And to send files
Oh,
between, if I'm like talking to a person, I need to like send a picture or actually that's WhatsApp. Yeah, I don't know.
You do
Hmm.
all sorts
The point
of
being,
It makes sense.
the point
I mean,
being that
that technology is old now.
You don't
and
need
it doesn't
that
hold a candle
yeah,
to the new
the point I was trying to
technology.
say is you don't need the new technology. I could survive by listening to a cassette recorder from old, okay?
Mm.
But because this particular chap,
Because
has
it's
been-
young.
yeah, well, I'm just using him as an example because he was one because he hadn't seen one before, so he would be young. That only young people wouldn't have seen that. He felt that his life wouldn't be worth using that technology because it's too old. Yeah.
But I don't think it's the fact that it's too old per se. It's the fact that he's used to good sound now and the Bluetooth function. So for him, even bother with that because it's like, well, I need those things in my life, even though he doesn't.
So my point was,
he feels like he
my
does.
point was that you don't need those things in life
Yeah.
because we survive without them.
But
That's true.
we're past survival now as humans. We're not surviving anymore. Why should I survive with something lesser than what I need?
What are you going
What
to do
I
if
should
you were
have.
stuck without any battery or no plugs?
No photos.
You wouldn't be able to plug in your phone, and you wouldn't be able to plug if you were in a place where the electricity wasn't working.
Oh, I would not be there in the first place. Why do we?
No, let's say this place had a power cut, and the power cut lasted a week.
Oh no way! I'd be out up here in a friend's house or hotel or something, or a pub.
What if it was the
day.
whole world? I mean, the whole planet.
What if you
gosh.
had a pulse bomb came down and wiped out the electricity of the country?
Pulse? Oh,
Yeah, it's one of these bombs that actually can wipe out all the electric. Keith, it's true, isn't it?
Yeah, the
Then-
EMP.
Actually, what happened to the banks and stuff? Because money's just numbers now in a machine. That'll just go. Especially everyone's house would reset to zero. That would be
The
terrifying.
money we use
Effectively,
isn't.
if we use an EMP, it does.
Yes. And the electronic pulse.
Oh yeah,
electronic
yeah, it could
pulse,
crash the
yeah.
whole market.
That's ridiculous. Imagine all the
But
rich people.
here's- Here's a thought
Oh
for you.
no, rich people have gold. They don't need to worry about
No,
that.
they'll deal in gold.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's true.
because money is not real. If
What
they
do you
are
think Fort
IOU.
Knox exists?
What, sorry?
What do you think Fort Knox is?
I'm not sure what Knox is actually.
It's
in
America's
America.
gold reserve.
Gold.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's because the people who know don't
Yeah.
have
Because
massive
no,
bank accounts. They buy
Yeah,
gold.
they
and
buy
store
gold.
it.
Yeah, because notes are not real
If
money.
you don't-
It says on the notes they're IOUs, and it says on the note, you take out a note from your wallet right now, it will say on it that it's an IOU, and at any time, if the people who own the banks want to come and claim that money back from you, you have to pay it in gold. And if you don't have it on you, they can send you to jail.
It actually says on your note.
Look at your notes.
Yeah.
We'll show you later anyway.
It's scary when you actually think about
It
it.
is really
Money
scary.
doesn't exist. We're all under the thumb.
We're all in debt. Every time we spend these notes, we're getting even more into debt every single time.
And every time you get paid these notes, they're
You are
paying
in
you debt. They're making you more
You're
debt.
in
Then
debt.
what is credit then? I pay credit with money.
Look, I have
Credit is
another.
a
I
false-
have
Yeah,
a video
it's
on my
like
channel about this.
It's
About
a
money and how it
a
works.
fantasy, it's like a falsehood. It's an illusion. An illusion.
So
That's
when I
what
get
it
rich,
is.
I need to buy gold and like a World War III bunker. I'll be
the
fine.
bunker doesn't do anything. But let's think for a second.
Oh, you're not
If that
gonna need
happens,
it.
you would
You
not need a bunker. You're
No.
better off just standing there and letting it take you.
Because it'll be nuclear, wouldn't it? So then you have to.
Not only would it be nuclear, you just wouldn't want to survive.
Oh, that's.
If you were so
Um,
rich that you had so much gold, you probably wouldn't even need a bunker because whatever they're planning wouldn't even affect you. It would just
you'd
affect
know when to
everyone
get
else.
out and you'd know where to go.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's a list that like has like a ship to Mars or something. A list of like all the smartest rich people on the planet have like on this exclusive list or something.
I have no idea.
That's a
I
common
wouldn't
myth.
be surprised
I
though,
don't-
because they're
It's
trying
not
to
possible
colonize
to
Mars at the
colonize
moment.
Mars yet, so
But that's what they tell us though. We don't really
That's
know.
what this.
To be fair,
Yeah.
Keith, to be fair, you know,
That's
you don't have to
crazy.
agree with me. Don't, you
no,
know.
I realise
We
this.
only know
Yeah.
what we're told, aren't we?
Yeah, that's the problem.
It's like there was there's a belief system that says that I think it's in Antarctica, they have like an ark where they've built this place where they're putting every animal and every plant in for when if there was to be a wipeout, they would have everything there. All the rich would have it.
And the other
Well,
thing
Kew Gardens has
Kew
pretty
Gardens
much
is one,
exactly
yeah.
the same.
is it?
With plants, virtually every plant on the
Wow, that's amazing.
certainly in the country has got,
Yeah.
even those that are now extinct have
They've
got
still got
seedlings.
one.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. And then they don't just deal in money; they mostly deal in seeds. There was a story.
That's not funny. I'm not laughing because it's funny. Please no.
Don't
I'm laughing
worry.
because it's like what?
Yeah, you need seeds and you need
To make
animal
plants.
stock and you need land.
If you had seeds, then you could grow your own plants.
Animal means nothing because even gold could lose its value at any point.
Yeah, gold is just shiny. That's all it's worth. It's just shiny to
Yeah.
look at.
But rich people, really
Wow.
rich people, are collecting
Oh,
seeds
that's
of every
cool.
plant and all kinds of things because when the world goes tits up, however you want to say that, they have all these seeds stored like wherever.
So they can regrow it.
They can regrow these things. And
Susanna.
they have animal stock, they have land. Without these things, money doesn't matter for anything.
Keith wants to weigh in on the gold.
Oh yeah, go on, sorry. Yeah.
You did want to talk about when
I was just
the
making
gold
a
is
point.
just shiny. You were
Yeah,
gonna
that's,
say
that's,
something.
yeah, it's
that's what it is. It's just a shiny metal.
Yeah.
That's in essence,
It's
really.
a false
Yeah.
currency.
But
Effectively,
It's less
value
false
is only
than
what people
IOUs.
think it is.
Yeah,
But
like,
I mean-
like diamonds, for
yeah.
example. Diamonds are only expensive because they're rare.
It's,
Yeah, but they're not.
no,
told they're
no,
rare.
they're not rare. They can be
They're
made.
extremely common.
Oh,
they're made
We're
from
told they're
carbon.
rare.
They're made
So
from carbon
therefore-
pressured against it.
Diamonds are carbon. They're made from the exactly same thing that makes graphite.
I know that they can make
The only
those
difference
diamonds.
between graphite, and diamonds are one atom that's placed in a different place or on the DNA
thing.
line or
On the
whatever you want to
strand.
call it. Yeah,
And they can
And the
move
pressure.
DNA now. You know they
Yeah,
can change DNA.
yeah.
oh, CRISPR.
yeah. Because diamonds and graphite are made from exactly the same thing, carbon.
They
It's
can-
really
they
interesting,
can grow
actually.
this stuff
But
in
I was
that.
going to say with the gold thing, you're right. Gold is just a shiny, useless metal. That's why it's used as currency, because it doesn't react to anything. It's basically useless. But at least if you have gold, you're not in debt. Whereas if you deal in notes, which is just basically paper, you're getting yourself into debt
Yep.
continuously.
And if it's digital currency, then that's continuous.
Because they
Which
can
is why
track you.
as a planet,
Oh.
we're 4 trillion in debt.
Let me try this one.
It's like, as a planet,
It's
we're 4
insane.
trillion in debt. Who are we in debt to?
The
Yeah,
people on
yeah,
the
yeah,
back.
that's
It's like,
right.
as a
Yeah.
planet, we're 4 trillion in
But
debt.
you're-
It's like, well, hold on, how come?
You're 4
How does that
trillion
even work?
in
How
debt
do we
to
owe
those
4
families,
trillion?
aren't you?
To the banking.
Families,
Families.
As a
banking
planet,
families,
Surely,
to the banking
Yeah.
families.
You don't
But
mean
then
the
again,
planet,
it's false.
you mean the world. The world is the social construction that they've placed in our minds. Planet is the physical counterpart. The planet doesn't own money. I knew what you meant, but I just wanted to specify
effectively,
because I
it
know
is
where
the
you're coming
planet,
from.
Well,
because everything is
okay.
owned by someone and
Yes.
something, and therefore,
Yeah, but animals don't have to pay that. Plants don't have to pay that. They're not part of our world.
yeah,
They're
but the
not part of
farmer
our
owns the
social group.
animals, and therefore it's his asset.
Yeah, well, to a certain extent, yeah,
let-
because we've conquered the animals, but technically we
Let me-
shouldn't
let me
do that.
explain
But I know
this.
where you're coming from. I do agree with you. But
Let me in the short version of that video I make, okay, and I'll explain to Ruben to explain this, okay,
Yeah.
of why everything that you own is not owned by you,
Yeah.
okay. Let me explain this really quickly. Let's
I
try.
bought it.
Okay, let me explain this like this, right? So say I own this remote control,
Mhm.
yeah, and I lend it to you,
Okay.
okay, and you lend it to Keith. Go for it, okay? Who owns that remote control?
No, you still in.
Okay, right. But I've lent it to you, and now I want it back, and Keith has it, but you can't get it off Keith. Who owes me the money for that remote control?
Well, I did.
Okay, but Keith owes you the money, right? Okay, so but that remote control is owned by me. Okay, okay. So what if let's just pretend this is £10, okay? And you're a person. I lend you £10, okay? Now you owe me £10, right?
Yeah.
And you can't pay me because you've lent it over to Keith, right? So the only thing you can pay me with is the scarf around your neck, which is worth £10. Okay, I'm not taking it. I'm just giving you an example. Okay, so now I own that scarf because you owe it to me.
Let me put it this
No,
way.
hold on. He can work on this.
Sorry.
Okay, do you get that? That because you owe me £10, now anything that's worth £10 on your possession, it's like if you take out a mortgage, okay, and the mortgage company owns the house until you pay off that mortgage. Okay, so at any time they can repossess the house if they want to call in the loan.
I think sorry, I'm getting ahead
Do
of
you,
myself.
do you
I do
understand
apologize.
that mentality?
Sort of.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's
So-
like repo, man.
Okay, yeah. So what happened was there was a family and they got together gold. Okay, and then they got to a point where the country got into a debt situation, and they asked this family to lend them money to pay off their debt. The country. Okay, so the family gave them gold. Okay, and they said, okay, we're going to give it to you, but we're going to give you in the basis of an IOU slip. You owe us the money, okay, because we can't give you everything you're asking for. So going to say, we're going to give you money, and that will be an IOU, and they filtered this money across the country. Okay, so that family paid for their debt, but in response they said, right, but we want it back on interest. Now the government doesn't have the money to pay the interest because they only got the money to rent so they could pay off the debt. So now they owe this family money. So they have to continually get money. Well, how do they get money? Now they borrow it from other people. Now those people owe them money. And over the course of time, the whole world owes this family money because of debt and interest.
I think a better way to explain it, though.
Did you not? He understood.
No,
that.
that's a good way. But I think in terms of your possessions, what I would say is, sorry, I didn't mean to be rude. That was not my intention. I do apologize.
Right.
I would be like, you do own things, but technically, say you owe, like you don't pay your council tax, yeah? The government could come and they'll take everything from you. That's not true democracy. You know what I mean? Because technically, they owe everything, because if you don't pay the money that they're demanding you pay, they're forcing you to pay for council tax, they're going to take everything away from you. So that's what David means. Like, you really own anything.
You don't own it because you owe it to someone. Because of the
they can take it, come and take it at any second. And council tax is something that you're not paying willingly, you're being forced to pay. That's how you know you don't live in a democracy, because you're being forced to pay for things that you didn't necessarily agree to in the first place, or like taxes, things like that.
Well, council tax is for was it healthcare, education?
You say that,
things like that.
But why should you pay for that?
Because if more people pay for me, I just pay it forward.
Yeah, but why would they have to pay for it? Why does anyone have to pay for it? Shouldn't we all be living together in a free society where we all help each other?
Definitely, we should be.
The original meaning of communism.
People need to be rewarded for their time and effort and their skill, and people need to be allowed to.
And that's money again, being paid money for their worth. Yes.
Well, money may not be the best system, but it's the best one so far. Like with money, if I'm paid money, then I can buy anything which I need at that time.
It's the best one that they say is in place right now, but it's not the only system that's ever run in the commerce.
I know there's like a barter system, but then like what if I get paid? What if I get paid like apples for doing a job for this orchard place, but then I can't trade apples for anything else. I can only eat them.
So it's very interesting you say that, because a long time ago, what was a friend of mine, he ran a system with lots of people, and I say lots of people, I mean like about 10,000 people, okay, where they were an IOU bartering system within friends, okay? So you did a piece of work for me, say you mowed my lawn, I would pay you with 10 IOUs. It's like money, IOUs, yeah? And those IOUs you could then cash off by getting a favor from somebody else in this system that you set up.
Oh, that's like
okay?
a little community thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a community thing. And that's exactly what we have today with money. It's just like exactly the same situation.
That still counts as capitalism.
I know.
Because you're not trading skills. You're not trading products. You're trading the service and the products for the magic beans, if you will.
Cocoa beans.
And that's the currency.
But with beans, you can then bury them and then get a beanstalk and then get a neck.
Right, okay.
in La La Land.
I'm not saying anything right now. You go with your magic beans and plant them and see what happens.
I will. You'll be jealous when I come up with a golden egg.
All right, so we've steered off topic from dancing.
Maybe we didn't. Maybe it's. I mean, this is all. I don't know.
But so, I think the only thing, the weird thing, I think one of the things where people are struggling to provide monetary value for is art.
It's art.
Yeah, art, like dancing, music, acting. People take art for granted, I think. Because like we all. I
think because art is interesting, because art is one of those so vague subjects. Because it's like modern art, for example, could be a pole sticking out of the ground, and they could say that's my art.
Yes.
And you could charge like £5,000 for that pole.
Of course, it has like meaning and research and feeling and value.
But does it?
If you say it does, it does.
If you say it does, it does.
Yeah, just because you say
So-
it does, doesn't mean
So
that
I
it
can
does.
say that this design that we've made on this password thing, yeah, this design is made by the Indian woman, and we could say that this is art. Yes,
Okay.
I'd like to sell that to you for £10,000.
Can't charge that much
Why
unless
not?
you're famous.
Aha! Why?
Because you made a name for yourself. It's branding.
Who
and
made that
marketing.
And
People
who
at
made the
top.
rule that? How did they become famous? By creating a £10,000 modern art.
It's about image, isn't it? And image is idolatry, according to the Bible.
Idolatry.
Yeah, idol
idols.
worship.
Images are idols, and they're false idols that people worship.
And pay money for.
Yeah, they go to the cinema to watch their the images of their idols, and they pay someone money to go and watch this. It's part in the Roman Empire. At one point, the people got angry and they protested against the Senate because they were living in really small tenement halls. Yeah, that's what they call them in America. We call them flats. I think some areas in England you would call them tenement halls. Okay, and they were very tiny, and there was a lot of people living in these very small flats. And in some cases, they shared toilets, toilet facilities. It wasn't the same. Because obviously the Roman Empire did not have a sewage system as, I suppose, sophisticated as we do, but they shared these kind of facilities basically in their tenement halls. And so the people took to the streets to protest against the Senate because they wanted better conditions. What the Senate did in response to this was create the Colosseum and the Circus Maximus, because in their agenda was, if we distract the people from the conditions they're living in, they're not going to complain about those conditions anymore. They're going to accept them because they will happily live in a society where there's entertainment provided, yeah, and they're happy to live in small places as long as they're continuously getting this entertainment. And that's exactly what happened. They built the Colosseum. They built where they had gladiator battles. They had theatrical performances. They had battleships, as in ships that battled each other. Not real battles, but like
Fake battles.
Yeah, it was an entertainment venue. Okay, Okay, and then you had the Circus Maximus, which was chariot races. Okay, and this is exactly what happened. Once they built these things, people stopped complaining about their circumstances because suddenly it became very popular to live in a big city like Rome. Because yes, you live in a small place, but you get all this entertainment at hand, and that's exactly what big cities do, like London and Paris. You trade comfortable spaces for the entertainment or for the noise, and all of it is a diversion to divert you from what's really going on in the world. And that's the agenda. And that's what the Roman Empire did. They did not change the conditions of the people. They left them, they still lived in the tenement halls at the end of the day. They didn't make things better, but now they were happy to live under those conditions because they were being provided with entertainment, which they have to pay for. But it's brilliant. It's incredibly clever.
But one of the amazing things about compact society is that is social mobility, I think.
What does that mean?
It means, say for example, you were born poor and then you end up working a good job or end up buying a house and not getting buy a bigger house and end up getting a better job. You can work your way up in any social ladder, corporate ladder.
Or work your way down.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. I guess.
From the top down.
Yeah, so it's to the extent whether it's up to the government or the people to do that for them. I mean, of course, they need to know that it exists, but then at the end of the day, people need to.
I have to weigh in on this, okay? He's saying it's up to us as people to improve our environment around us, and I'm right, yeah, what you're saying, yeah, and become better people and grow into a better place, and that's the great thing about social mobility. But I have to disagree. I mean, how many people are homeless and can't get into a home because of the social condition that's created around them?
Well,
and then can't get a job because they've been unemployed for like 2 years and they've been on the streets.
Well, for most jobs, you can just do a trial shift. You can prove your skills there and then get a job. Yeah.
Look,
If you're
I've
homeless, you
had them.
can't get a job.
no, you
Yeah,
can't
I've
get a
had
job.
them.
It's a
Yes, you-
very
If you're
difficult
genuinely
situation.
homeless, you cannot get a job
Yeah.
No, because you
Very
can't get a
hard to
job
get out
without
of
a
that.
home, without an
Yeah.
address.
You see, just like
because
a
they can't
shelter.
pay you.
You see, the only thing,
Yeah.
Or shelter.
the only thing
Yeah.
addresses are for sending documents for. If they're
So hold on. Have you been in the shelter, and are you talking from experience?
Well, yeah.
So tell us your experience.
Oh well, I don't want to get into that, but I know for a fact that I just have us having a job. Like
So have you been in a shelter?
well, just by having a job, you can write down any
This
address.
is a controversial opinion. You're saying the onus is on the poor people to stop being poor.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying that at all. But the thing is, though, they're rather an empire with like the systems, and everything else. Surely they.
You do realize the Senate was comprised of individuals from the richest families of the time. And there's a reason for that, because people with the money are the ones who have the power. And they go out of their way to keep the poor people poor, because if they became rich, then there would be more competition. And the more riches there are amongst the people, the more diluted the money becomes. It starts losing value. So they have to make sure that only a number of people are rich, so that money has value. Because if everyone was rich, nobody would be rich.
And I've got to tell you from
But, like,
experience.
not everyone wants to be a better person. I've
Oh,
learned that for- I've
at
learned
one
that hard way.
stage-
I'm sorry, one
I know.
second. I don't understand what that has to do with money.
Because not everyone wants to rise to the top.
Okay. Let me
But
touch
nobody wants to be poor.
No.
Yes, exactly. But
All
no
right,
one wants- well,
look,
it's like
let me
it's
say
like
something here.
it's almost like a pyramid. Like
There was somewhere I was going.
It is a pyramid.
There was somewhere I was going. Okay, so there came a time when I was on the street, homeless. Okay, I have a place now, but that's because of people, families, and friends helping me.
That's true.
Okay, if I didn't have those,
That's true.
I called shelter at the time I ended up on the street. I got thrown out of my flat, I lost my job, and I lost everything. I was on the street for real. Okay, I called shelter, and shelter said to me, "We cannot give you any accommodation for 2 months. You have to live on the street for 2 months, and after 2 months, then we can give you accommodation and we'll give you an address." But after 2 months of not having a job and being on the street, to then get an address, I then have to, first of all, I'd have to clean myself up, which I wouldn't be able to do because of the circumstances.
Well,
Well,
And I'd have to have the money to pay shelter, because you do have to pay a little bit, which is why they end up begging in the first place.
that's very unfortunate. We went through that, but if you
But I'm saying the only reason why I managed to get myself back up is because I had some sympathetic family members and friends who gave me the cash I
That's
needed to get myself back into a place to live and then back into a job.
that's amazing.
And if I didn't have that, I would have still probably be on the street today, because you can't get out of the system without help.
well, help from organizations which are, I mean, I don't know. We grew up in different times, so I don't. It might be different.
This was about 8 years ago.
Oh, that's very recent.
So carry on.
Okay. Well, recent in the grand scale of things, anyway. But yeah, and the plus
it's not impossible, but it
Yeah,
is
I'm just-
hard.
Yes, but life is hard. Doesn't mean life isn't possible.
Okay.
And plus, there are different risk factors associated with it. I mean, like, I know that there are certain like there's like a tier system to, like, for example, pregnant women or women with children are first.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, then it's like
Yeah.
families.
I didn't fit into the tier system.
Yeah,
because I was a single man.
Yeah.
Single white man. You're the worst of the worst.
Single white man. I'm not an
I'm
ethnic
just
minority. No, she's right.
Period.
I'm not an ethnic
Correct.
minority. I'm single, so I don't have a couple. I don't have a child. I wasn't divorced. I wasn't in a relationship of sorts.
I meant I
I didn't
wasn't trying
have
to be
any
sexist.
family or friends at the time who were in the vicinity,
Yeah.
who were able to put me up. So essentially, in their tier system,
Yeah.
I wasn't even in the top 20.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
was right down at the bottom of the tier system.
And the other thing is, when you look at what's going on in the news, everything that happens is always to commoners. It's always to the poor people. You never hear of, I don't know, a rich person getting into a fight, or there's been
A brawl between the two stars in the pub,
Because what? Why?
sometimes it happens, but only to celebrities, not necessarily.
only to boost their career.
I mean,
And there's always a reason behind it.
I mean,
It's
if you
common.
have, like, there's a difference between having a brand to maintain or to develop and not, you know, like you wouldn't see any superstar having a fight unless like that was like their image.
I think
yeah.
what it is, Ruben, is being in poverty is really hard.
Of course it is.
Having to go days without eating, sleeping on the streets. I slept on the streets once in my life, and it was very difficult. It was a winter's day. It was cold. We had nowhere to sleep. We had to sit on our suitcase. We found this kind of like cove in a wall, or whatever you call it, in London, of all places, South London. And we slept there for the night. I wasn't sure if we were going to get killed or if we were
Yeah, people treat homeless people awfully.
Um,
It's a real shame.
We found residents in the doors of a church.
yes, that's right.
Yeah, churches. If anyone
They
watching this
didn't
is
want to
homeless-
have us come in
Yeah, but
because we're homeless. So you, every,
No,
they shouldn't allow you
no,
to
no,
pray.
they wouldn't put us up.
Um,
They wouldn't put us up because we were homeless. So homeless people, when you're homeless, you get a different social context to other people. You get treated differently to anything
but
else.
some
As soon
churches
as-
do put up homeless
No, I'm not saying they
people.
don't.
And they
I'm
should
saying that on this occasion,
Mm.
and any public authority, as in church, hospital, police stations, fire stations, should be able to direct you to a homeless situation. Any community
Yes.
community type
They-
building.
I don't think it works like
it
that,
doesn't
does
work
it?
like that.
Yeah,
They,
they
It does,
direct,
but
they
you don't
direct
get
you
put
to
on the
them.
waiting
You get
list,
put on the
which
That's
waiting
what I'm
list.
saying. They won't
And
give you
far longer than
accommodation
the
straight
And a
away.
lot of churches actually do like copy warnings and things
yes,
like
they
that.
do, but they
They
don't
do
have
now.
you. They don't have
do,
you
do they
stay.
now, as in
They-
in the past.
They did times
They
in the
do more
past.
now because they've
Mm.
had to.
They're not allowed to give
Because
out
it's
food to
getting
people in the street.
Yeah,
You're not allowed to
yeah.
do that. You have to have, if you're on the street, we officially can't feed people, but we do anyway.
Yeah, in some states in America,
Yeah.
it's now illegal to feed the poor.
Yeah, because they can get food poisoning and sue or something.
That's not the
but,
reason.
But you can't sue about an address. So
Right, that's not the reason.
what is the reason? They might die. What is the reason?
No, it's the reason. It's just the I can't say. Not on camera. I can't
That's not to.
say. But that's not the reason. That's what I'm saying. I'll tell you off camera.
But I want actually Keith to explain to me, you know how we were talking about how witchcraft can be powerful? You were saying that one witch could, in fact, have that much power over all those people. How would that work?
Just with spells, and if you get to one and then
I
you
see
get
what
to
you're
another,
saying. It
and
can
then you
pass
get
You
to
know
another,
what?
on.
it's the snowball effect.
That is really
That's
similar
interesting.
to recent circumstances.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
That we should talk about that later.
because
That snowball
yeah,
effect makes
that's
sense.
right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we're right.
We should tell Keith about that
Yeah.
actually. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because witchcraft takes a lot of energy in the
Yes,
same
it
way
does.
that prayer takes a lot of
It does,
energy.
yeah.
Because they're kind of opposite to each other. They're like on the same spectrum. Because prayers is blessing and witchcraft is cursing.
Yes.
And they both require energy. And if you put a spell on someone, you are using up your own energy. Unless you're using someone else's blood and you're doing blood
You're
magic.
always going to
Then you're using
energy.
someone else's energy, but I suppose you'd always use some of your own energy. So yeah, to control that many people, you're right. That would have to be like planned, and it would take a long time, and you'd have to get to one person and then make sure that person goes to the other person, and that's interesting. Do you think that would be possible? Do you think?
I think it would be possible to effectively teach somebody a spell without them ever realising
that is
quite
true,
what they
and
were
curse
doing.
themselves as well.
Yeah, you could
And then
easily.
by doing
People
that,
do that all the
you've then
time
got
now.
2 people doing it, and those 2 people then have 4 people doing it.
They'll
and then 8
pass it
people.
on and pass it on.
It's really interesting because it's like now when you tell, you'll agree with this one. When you tell a child, you're stupid.
That's a
And
curse.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
using an example, okay? And they, after a while of telling them
It
you're
affects
stupid,
them.
they then tell someone else, I'm stupid.
Yeah,
Yeah. Or in retaliation, they say, you're stupid too.
it's like
You know?
all my
So then
life.
they've gone and
Sorry.
they've cursed the next person. And if that curse carries on around, you could get all these people believing they're
That's right.
stupid in a
That's
whole
right.
section.
All my life, I was told I was fat, even though I wasn't. So I ended up becoming fat because I believed that was a curse on my life. That was a curse on my spirit. Or like the way men are told, you're not man enough. that is a curse. It will affect you psychologically because the psyche is the soul, as
Mhm.
far as the ancient Greeks were concerned. Not necessarily in our modern society, but who's to say our modern society is right and the ancient Greeks were wrong? And this is the mistake we make in thinking that things of the past are wrong and things in the present are right.
But
That's not necessarily the
we're told
case.
about things that were in the past, and this is how the past behaved, and this is what the past were like, when we don't know for sure. And there's a bunch of evidence that opposes that belief, but they shrug that under the carpet and just keep you teaching the same things till you believe it.
I mean, schools are governmental institutions.
Yes.
So they are very careful with what they teach people at school.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, they have a core curriculum.
The national curriculum
This
Yeah.
core
Which is
curriculum,
changed and updated on
it
a regular
changes all the
basis.
time.
Yeah, but then is it up to the individuals, parents, children, whoever, to then guide one's education around that?
They don't
Or-
have a choice.
No choice.
I got pulled out of school when I was younger because they were teaching stuff my parents didn't even agree with.
Yeah.
And my parents are teachers.
Yeah.
So they pulled us out for a couple of years and then popped us in a little bit later. And we carried on the system. We were way ahead of the kids by then.
Oh yeah, it
But the point I'm trying to make is that these, I'm going to say doctrines that they teach the kids
Yeah.
aren't necessarily.
Again, that word doctrine.
Yeah. Aren't necessarily truth. Because, like, for example, here's one for you. I learnt AS level religious studies, Testament, because I was curious about studying something that I knew really well.
Mhm.
And my teacher, an atheist, said at the beginning of the studies, how many in this room are Christians? And 2 of us raised our hands. Okay. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you now, I'm going to spend the next year proving to you God does not exist
That's not
by
fair.
teaching you the Bible.
That's not fair.
Yeah.
As a teacher, that's
Yes.
weird. Why would
And
you say
it's
that's
interesting that they would specifically pick an atheist teacher to teach religious studies. I
Yeah.
mean, why would they do that?
I mean, I mean, you should. One's religion or non-religion should not be taken into account if you're going to teach any subject. Like you can be a Muslim and teach Christianity as long as you know the subject. I think.
No,
Oh, okay.
absolutely not. No,
Oh,
I do not agree with this point at all. Sorry. It's
Okay.
like saying you can take an archaeologist and have them teach science, or you can take an actor and have them teach architecture. Well, no, even if they've read books on architecture, they haven't practiced architecture. They haven't studied architecture.
I guess my wording was
What about
teaching.
geography?
Was
A
teaching.
geography
I
teacher
mean-
may never have left the country.
Yeah, that's very true. Actually, that's very true. And I mean,
And that's why, you know,
As long as you're taught the subject, there's no reason you can't teach others it.
but Muslims do not understand Christian spirituality.
But they're not
you
Yeah,
know,
but that's not religious studies.
they're not. But if
yeah, I see what you're
That's
saying.
Christianity
I-
studies. That's not.
but religious studies,
Yeah, but
as far as I know, is really Christianity based.
I'm going to have to disagree with Keith here because and that's fine. It's perfectly fine to disagree. Everyone can disagree. We don't have to have a fight about it. What is it?
You're showing your hands.
No, I
Oh,
use my hands when I talk. I'm Portuguese. It's nothing against you. I love you. I'm just saying that I see where you're coming from. I get where you're coming from. On a logical level, that makes sense. But if you're an atheist teaching religious studies, you're already bringing in your bias into it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you can't help but be biased. But then
But then why would you teach religious
the
studies?
same-
One
You
second,
shouldn't say
Darren,
that to
sorry.
children.
Why would you teach religious studies in the first place if you're an atheist? Why would you even have an interest in that? I think, for me, I think there's an agenda behind that. That's all I'm saying.
The
probably
agenda
is, but
behind
there's no
it.
reason why they shouldn't be allowed to teach it.
I think the problem is
Fair
not.
enough, but I don't
Keith,
think.
I don't think the problem was them teaching
Sorry.
it. I think the problem was them saying, I'm going to spend the next year disproving to you that the
The
Bible
problem
is.
was their motivation.
Yeah,
in
that's
teaching
what I'm
know?
saying. They're
Yeah.
biased. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Sorry.
Oh, the thing is about how a Muslim person may not understand Christian spirituality.
Mhm.
You're not. Children are not being educated or tested based on what they understand of Christian spirituality. They're based on what the example wants them to know.
Yeah.
So if
That's
it's-
true. That's true. That's what Keith was saying.
I mean,
in a way.
a lot of school has now been done down to us us teachers sort of know what's going to be on these exams, so then like learn these things, write it in this way, and you'll get this
Wow.
grade. That's what that's what a lot of schools
Yeah.
are
That's
going down to now.
incredible. That's so bad.
Sorry, say that
It's
again.
been that way for a long time.
Because I'm not sure it might be different in Portugal. Oh, you came here when you were
No,
like-
I was here, but I think the school
Okay.
has changed a lot since
Okay.
since I studied at
Well,
school.
especially when I was doing A-level psychology specifically, we knew that one particular question was going to be on the final exam. So then we all just like learned that subject, and most of us got A's, sort of thing.
Wow.
So it's like you can predict exam questions. Some teachers may know what exam questions are because like it gets passed down, whatever, and they teach their students, okay, write this in this way. I know how other examiners think, because teachers mark each other's mark each, like one scored mark school A would mark school B's exam questions, which will mark school C, which will then like that sort of thing.
Did you guys have religious studies?
I didn't do religious studies for GCSE. I wish I did though, but I didn't do it.
But did you do before GCSE? Did they have it in the curriculum for the first 3 years?
Sort of, yeah. So I had to learn it.
I do apologize, Keith. I guess I just get passionate about it because
That's cool.
Yeah.
it's like we were saying, it's the motivation, the fact that he only studied religious studies so he could go around telling people God doesn't exist. We can't prove God exists, but the atheists can't prove God doesn't exist.
It was really
So-
interesting though, because of course I was studying it, and I'm a Christian, and I was also leading the Christian Union in that school, and no matter how much he tried to disprove, because I was studying it so much, that's part of my course anyway, I was able to argue every single case he came up with to the positive. There was nothing he said that I thought, oh yeah, you're right, I really can't explain this. Like he explained silly things, like he would show, because he was doing the New Testament only.
Yeah,
So he would say, in this
that's
book,
interesting how he was only doing the New Testament, which is the specific Christian book, whereas the Old Testament
is the Jewish book.
is the Jewish book.
Yeah, but anyway, so
And the
he was-
foundation for it all.
Exactly.
he was saying that Jesus went from this place to this place in this book of the Bible. But in this book of the Bible, he said he went from the first place to a completely different place. And clearly they both contradict each other. But
They're
actually,
different translations.
no. When you look up the route, go through that place to get to that
I
place.
see. Yeah.
But he probably knew that, but he was trying to twist to try and
I
disprove.
think for me this is a passionate subject because I meet a lot of non-Christians who think they're experts on the Bible or Christianity, and they've heard things in TV shows or movies and they think they know everything. And it really upsets me because it's like, you don't know what you're talking about. So that's why I was getting like a little bit passionate. And I used to be an atheist. I think I was an atheist for like 15 years of my life. So I studied a lot of like atheist writers like Sam Harris, and what's the famous one that everyone either loves or hates? Richard Dawkins, et cetera, et cetera. I studied a lot of their writings. And then when I became a Christian, I'm still learning, but I've started reading the Bible. But it's not just about the Bible, it's also about studying things outside of that and questioning things and going to Bible studies so people can have active discussions about the Bible and understanding how the Bible works. Because it's not a book like the other books. There is a system to it, and you have to learn how the system works. But people take things out of context, and then they use it to kind of like further their agendas or their biases and stuff like that. And that really gets on my nerves. So I take that quite personally.
I spoke to Reuben about context and how I gave him examples of scriptures that are sometimes taken out of context, and how that it is the usual thing. And also, like, they actually on social media, they'll misquote a scripture, as in they'll say a scripture says this, and it doesn't say that at all. And you have to come up to if you see something like that, always look up the scripture and write underneath, no, the scripture actually says this. Because they use scriptures, they make up scriptures out of the top of their heads and write something up on them, they just put it up on both social media.
And sometimes they just actively lie. I used to watch Orange is the New Black, and there was this character in the show that said something like how they hated this preacher that they met once because not only did the preacher use the word dyke. I have been so many churches in my life. I have never in my life heard a preacher swear or use the word dyke ever. And I think that's a really ugly word.
Definitely.
And two, they said something how in the Bible it says if babies die, they go straight to heaven and they become angels. I don't think that's in the Bible. I don't know.
I have never
I've
seen that in the
never
Bible.
heard that
I've never
scripture.
seen that anyway.
No.
So straight away, I'm like thinking this is propaganda because it's false information about the Bible. But people, and the only reason why I watched the show, and then this atheist friend of mine who's on Facebook started spreading that about on his Facebook page. And I said this to him, and this is the problem. People don't do research. They don't watch Orange is the New Black and then hear the characters talk about this and then go to themselves, oh, let's go and check the Bible and see if that really is in the Bible, see if that is a scripture in the Bible. No, they accept it as truth, as gospel, ironically enough, even though it isn't there. And this is the problem, because that's the power that media has, television and news or whatever.
Yeah.
They'll lie about something and people will automatically believe it.
They've
I
been
have
doing that.
never in my life heard a preacher call anyone a dyke or swear. Sometimes I swear, I'm a Christian. That's something I have a problem with, that I have to deal with in myself. But I have never heard a preacher swear. And when she said on the show that this preacher was using the word dyke, I was really shocked, because I know for a fact no preacher would do that.
Yeah. Also, they've actually been doing that all, as far as I can remember. School when I was 16, they had a common show at the time. I can't remember what it was, but it was probably Monty Python or something. And they would continually misquote the scriptures. And people would come up to me and they would use the arguments they've learnt on TV against me. And I would say, well, that's not in the Bible. Show me where that is. Or here's the scripture you're about. Oh, look, it doesn't say it. You know?
And one of the recent arguments we've had is that scripture in the Bible where they say if a guy has sex with a woman, he has to marry her by law. And people think that means he raped her, when actually what it means is if they have sex out of wedlock, at the time the law dictated that you had to marry this person, because having sex out of wedlock, is that how you say it?
Yes.
It was not legal.
In God's eyes, God said that if a man becomes one with a woman to be united to marriage.
Yeah. So at the time, if you had sex with someone, you had to get married. But people now look at that scripture and they think that means the guy raped her, so they have to get married. And now the Bible's saying it's okay to rape someone. No, the Bible is not saying that at all. I don't even know how you got that from that scripture. You know,
We've
had this
had that
argument
because
with Satanists.
someone's
who
mentioned it
are
online and had
convinced
to do a video on it.
that the Bible promotes rape and all kinds of things, and it's not true. It's people taking things out of context because I don't really know actually. I'm not entirely certain. But yeah, and right now there's a big controversy because there's a lot of Christians being killed all over the world, in all kinds of countries, and it's just crazy, really.
Why are they killing them?
I'm not sure. I haven't.
Ignorance mainly.
Yeah.
They think Christians are like causing. Some people would say they were causing a lot of problems in the world. So they're against their belief system.
And ever since Jesus was around, since people started becoming Christians because they were disciples of Jesus.
Yeah.
They've been killed and maimed and harmed and all
Christians being the swear word that the Romans used.
Yeah. It used to be a swear word.
Christian was the swear word.
Yeah.
And it meant, it's you're that freak who believes in Jesus. You're that idiot. You're a Christian.
Oh, that Romans killed Jesus, didn't they?
He was betrayed by the Jewish leaders of
Yes.
the time, and he was given over to the Roman authorities.
The Romans
And
didn't want to.
tribes.
Pontius Pilate didn't want to. He didn't want to kill him. He was forced to by the Jewish leaders.
Yeah, there's
Very
a
funny.
whole controversy around that. I think, for one thing,
He was trying to appease them. In
for
the Jewish
one thing,
festival.
the Judaism is very exclusive. It's just for the Jewish people, and Jesus was preaching to the Gentiles and the Goys, wasn't he? And bringing the gospel to people who were not Jewish. And I think that was kind of like a bit controversial at the time. Am I wrong in this?
Pretty much everything he did was controversial.
Yeah, he was a rebel. People don't realize this. He was a rebel, and he was actually considered a terrorist
He would have been, by today's standards,
He would have been a
considered
terrorist,
For
yeah.
Jesus.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Imagine going in your house by seeing like, this tastes like wine. Like, is that Jesus? Ah!
He was a rebel. He was a rebel, and he was the first person to bring the Jewish text to people who are not Jewish, who they call Gentiles or Goys.
Yes.
You know, so that was quite controversial in and of itself, and the Jewish leaders were not.
And he was
happy
saying
about
that God is for everyone, it's not just for the Jews.
That's true.
That's for everyone. Blasphemy.
That
Yeah.
was,
Cool.
and then in fact,
People don't realize this.
it's in fact, this is the Ethiopians.
Mhm.
They at that time were really strong in God, stronger than the Jews were. And that's why Jesus ministered to an Ethiopian who had the Bible in his hand when he spoke to him. And he said, yes, I've learned this text off by heart. And he'd sent him back to the Ethiopians and brought the gospel to the
I
Ethiopians.
thought the Bible was not written in
Torah,
Jesus'
the
times.
Torah.
Oh, right, yeah. Not
the
the
Old
Torah.
Testament.
The Torah is the first 5 books of what we call the Old Testament, but they have a Jewish word for it, which I don't know.
I think you'll find he had the Torah.
No, the Torah
I
are
know the first 5 books.
books
I know.
of the Old Testament.
That's what I'm saying. I think he had the Torah.
You think it just had the first 5
Yes.
books?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. But the point is that Ethiopia at that time.
I think he had the
Okay.
whole Old Testament. Let me look up what the original Jewish word for it is. Please
No, I
continue.
know,
We've
but
gone
that's
well
not-
off topic.
Yeah, it's true.
Ethiopia
I think
at that.
Keith wants to go to sleep.
All right.
About 4 hours ago.
Here's an interesting question for you, Susanna, which I'm trying to get to.
I'm the invisible.
Yes, I
friend.
know. Ethiopia, yeah,
Yeah.
the Ethiopians had the scriptures and they were stronger in the Lord, according to Jesus, than the Jewish people of that time.
Mm.
So nowadays, in today's society, Ethiopia is a poor country.
Mhm.
Here's a question. Do you think that it became a poor country by the elite Luciferians because the Ethiopians were stronger in God than any other nation? So they messed around, they destroyed the nation to bring them to poverty.
I have no idea. Wait, what was the question? Can you explain it?
How about that little theory I chucked in?
Why do you think they became poor? Because they believed in God.
No, because the people that are in power don't believe in God. Well, they do believe in God. They just believe that God is inferior. Okay. The people that are in power worship Satan. Well, with Lucifer, not Satan, but it's the same thing in the end of the day.
Not necessarily.
Okay, it's the same spirit.
No, Luciferianism is like comprised of Babylonian mythology.
Yes, but it's
Egyptian
worship of
mythology.
Satan.
Not necessarily.
So Lucifer is Satan.
Oh yeah, let's just disagree on this.
Okay.
Please continue.
Who is Satan?
Satan, I believe, means snake.
Who is Satan?
It's just a nickname. His name is Lucifer.
Okay, so it's the same person.
But they don't necessarily worship Lucifer per se. I think, from my studies on this, there is a polytheistic, religion, if you will, not necessarily monotheistic. But we're moving away from the point. Just continue.
I can't remember what I was going to say now.
Ethiopian poor. Was
Still
it?
don't remember
I
what
asked.
I
What
was
was Ethiopia poor? Because
Oh yeah, sorry. So I think that a lot of the poor nations of this world have been made poor by the people in power.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let me put it this way. In 1985, Live Aid came out, yeah?
Mm.
And they raised billions and billions of pounds to feed the poor in countries like Ethiopia, specifically targeted Ethiopia at that time. I remember it well. We used to talk about it all the time. Every single year, they released another Feed the World type of campaign, especially in this country. Yeah, Keith, you agree, yeah? Now,
No, I don't
here we
remember,
are.
but I know.
Here we are, 35 years later. 25, 35. 35 years later, and Ethiopia is still poor. How?
I have no idea.
Surely by now we would have raised enough money, especially when you go over there and they say all they want is a loaf of bread, and a loaf of bread could feed the family for a week or two. Yeah. So if they need a loaf of bread,
a loaf of bread
Yeah.
can feed an entire family for a week
for
or
like
two.
3 people, 4 people.
Can
Rice.
you really?
We're
Well, with rice.
Okay,
that's
but
fair
we're
enough.
talking about Ethiopia here. They're poor.
Yeah.
Okay, they're at the lowest level of poverty. If they got even a small amount of money, it can make a difference. Yet for
The
30,
whole of Ethiopia can't be poor. There must be like middle class people as well.
I'm saying what we're told. I'm trying to make a point here.
I'm sorry.
If you feed a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. But if you teach them,
That's what they teach us. Okay, so let's take that on board. Okay, let's say if you give them the tools, yes. So 35 years. So we're probably talking about 400 billion pounds has been raised to Ethiopia. 400 billion.
Mhm.
Do you think by now we could have provided all the tools they need to do the job?
Well, if you give a man money or woman money, if you give a person money, then they choose how to spend it.
Not money. I'm talking about the actual tools, because that's what we were raising money for. They said we would buy this well. We would give them all the tools. We would give them all this. This is what we were giving them.
Well, give them a well, give them food. I'm not hearing them. I'm not hearing entrepreneurship or drive or like.
Right. So you don't believe they have drive
Oh,
as a
God.
person, as humans?
No, I didn't say that, but like,
You said we didn't give them
That's a bit
drive.
harsh.
yeah. Huh?
You said we didn't give them drive.
Drive. Oh gosh. Well, I don't know. Well, the take as in like I didn't think Ethiopians in general don't have drive. No, that is definitely not true. I didn't think that at all. But it's like.
I was just
It's like
saying.
you didn't give them the hand to get out of
Yes,
it, really.
we did. Yes.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's like the difference between if you see a homeless person on the street and you give them food, yeah, but like give them a job. You know.
Right. Okay. So you're
Right.
in.
It's like it's the same thing, isn't it?
So what job could you give someone who is
In Ethiopia.
in Ethiopia?
I know, I've never been to the continent of Africa.
Have you
so I have
seen
no
the
idea
images? Have you ever seen the images of the poor people in Ethiopia?
Ethiopia specifically?
No, I
don't
mean,
know.
okay, African children.
I guess so. I spend my clothes on all the time.
So, how would you
Yeah.
give them a job?
I don't know. What goes on there? Like,
I'm sure they're just a nation like any other.
okay. So, I don't know. Do they have factories?
I
Is it a
think it's hard
factory
for us to
nation?
talk about this when we don't have enough information.
But what I'm
but
trying to
I mean,
say,
there's
do you
tribes
get
in
what I'm
Africa.
trying to
It's
We
say?
also have, there's middle class, there's rich people. It's like any other. I mean, Africa is a continent. Every
I'm
country
talking
is
about
going to be different.
Ethiopia, not Africa as a continent.
I know. There's poverty in London. There's poverty in England
Okay,
as well.
I'm trying to make a point here, and it's like you're.
I don't mean to win on your parade.
I'm
I'm
trying
not
to. Okay,
really, understanding
where
what
do
you're
you
saying
think the
either.
400 billion pounds has gone?
Oh, you mean the money that they raised for that?
Yeah, of course, because surely they'd be out of poverty
And
by
why
now.
there's still poverty?
Exactly. Why are they still living with famine and poverty into the level that we see on TV?
Maybe the government's corrupt. I don't know. Maybe it went to the government and the government's corrupt. That happens a lot in those countries.
So why are we still giving money to them?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I've never heard on the street that like, oh hey, you're gonna give money to Ethiopia. I didn't really hear that on the street.
No, you don't hear on the street anymore. Used to, didn't you? All the
Oh,
time.
Are you serious? Like,
Yeah, door to doors and everything. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's
Yeah, they don't do it much anymore, but they used to.
Oh, okay. Well, I have no idea. I don't know.
I think people don't give too much on the street anymore.
I don't know, to be honest.
How? That is interesting. Anyway, you all want to go to bed, don't you? You want to end this conversation ASAP. See in your face. Okay, guys. Right. Okay. Let's. Yo, you're not dancing. Someone actually came on and said, "Yo, you're not dancing," because at the moment I said, "Dance till we die." At the very beginning, I asked the question about dance till you die.
Oh my god, they probably think that we're on a live stream dancing till we die.
That's so macabre. So,
No,
no, thank you.
that was just the subject, not the.
The people are expecting us to dance until we die, until we pass out. Like a 5-day long live stream of us dancing to our ends.
David, are you talking about those concerts where they raise money for like certain places in Africa?
Yep.
And stuff.
Yep. And
That's-
they don't. It's not just concerts. Keith remembers, it was the whole country. The whole country would raise money. It wasn't Live Aid happened and we all gave money.
That is a good point. They should have eradicated the poverty by now.
Absolutely.
So where is the money going?
35 years of like 2 or 3 fundraisers every single year for 35 years, where they raise millions and millions and sometimes billions of pounds every single
But where has
year.
this come from? Why did you bring up that topic in the first place?
I don't remember. We were talking about something.
Okay.
Well, I'm sure when we play it back, we'll see.
Diverted from topic so much, I'm not entirely sure what's going on there.
This is really good because the good thing is I'll just put a long stream of things that we talked about today. Right, I think wrap it up. Yes.
Let's wrap it up.
So-
So can you dance until you die?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we agree. Yes. Okay. Do
We
you
sorted
want?
that about
Do you
an
want
hour
to
ago.
dance until you die?
Sorry, just wrapped up about an
Do you
hour
want
ago.
to dance until you die?
Well, no.
No.
I'd be
No.
doing it if I did.
That I'd like to see.
I think there are easier way of dying, if that's what you want to do.
Very
Which I hope it isn't.
Gosh.
Listen, right. So, okay, guys. Okay, so we've answered the subject. We've talked about loads of stuff, which I'll put in the feed,
We're no experts.
and
If you're
we'll
still awake. well done.
and it's been going on forever. And if anyone really watched this to the end, kudos to you. Yeah, you do agree with that, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have rambled on a bit.
All right, okay. So see you in the next stream, and hopefully we'll be awake next time.